So Fortnite Season 4 has revealed that the BloomWatcher's actual name is the Herald, and she works for something called the Nothing. Now, the similarities between her and the Cube Queen are beyond subtle. There are some clear copy and paste cuts that are being done here with both of these characters, so much so that a lot of people are starting to believe that the Herald is actually the Herald for the Cube Queen. But I would disagree. The fact that their powers are so similar is the point. Their power comes from the same source, and to understand why that is, we'll have to go back in time through Fortnite's story. So when I was doing research for this, it was surprising to see that Fortnite has actually been teasing this for about 3 years now. Something that was actually news to me that I was not aware of is that the Nothing was teased all the way back in Chapter 1. During the Black Hole event, the scientists sent on a message through the Black Hole basically saying that the Nothing was inevitable. Now let's fast forward to Chapter 3. Right when the new chapter started, the Foundation said this:
"You've all fought a good fight, but until we set the 0 point free, we'll be facing threats like the last reality, and worse."
If he's talking about enemies that are worse than the last reality, I don't believe that he's talking about the Imagined Order. The Seven and the Imagined Order were locked in a stalemate for centuries. So I don't think that they were the ones that they were necessarily worried about per se. Like, they were a concern, but they weren't the big bad in the back of their mind. If the scientist was fully aware of the Nothing, then it would stand to reason that the Foundation would be as well. Now, I want to divert your attention to something else. We have a good idea of what the Nothing looks like, or at least what the general concept for their presence is. The Nothing, that entity, we've seen it before. And the first time we actually ever saw it was through Dr. Sloan. Back in Chapter 2, Season 7, there was a loading screen that came out which basically gave a backstory of Dr. Sloan's entire life. Now, when this originally came out, I had made a theory back then that focused on the picture in the bottom right-hand corner. I had described it as an evil entity that Dr. Sloan was incredibly afraid of. I believe that that entity that she saw in that void was the Nothing. And here's another piece of evidence to support that. Last week I said that the BloomWatcher was not our enemy. That's obviously been disproven, but there's another part to that theory that was very essential to it. The BloomWatcher, or in this case now we know her to be the Herald, has no resemblance to the entity that's on the back of Malik's back bling. And that was a clear teaser for the entity that was controlling the liquid chrome on the island. That creature, however, does have a striking resemblance to the one that Dr. Sloan came across, which leads me to believe that it is the true source of power for the liquid chrome. But the craziness of this whole theory does not stop there. Earlier I said that the Cube Queen and the Herald share the same power. That is because the source of all of Fortnite's greatest villains come from the Nothing. The Nothing is what gives these different entities this shared power. Don't believe me? Let me prove it to you with a few examples. Let's go back to Chapter 2, Season 6 again. The Herald tried to appear to us back during that season, and if the Foundation had not sealed the 0 point the way that he did back then, the Herald would have appeared to take over the Fortnite island at that point. The Spire was a hardened version of the liquefied chrome back then. But because the Foundation had sealed the 0 point, it severed the connection between the Herald and our reality. Now, it's important to understand that I believe both the Herald and the Cube Queen were sent by the Nothing. The next bit of evidence to support this is that the last reality seemed to be attracted directly to the Spire, like it was aware of its presence. Fast forward a little bit, the cubes indirectly get put on the Fortnite island. Regardless of the timing, I think that this was the last reality's initial plan from the get-go, because the cubes were being housed on the ship that entire time. The Cube Queen is unleashed, and then by the end of the season, she's defeated. So here's my point to all this before we continue. The reason why the Cube Queen exists, and the reason why she was brought to the Fortnite island, was because she was the Herald's replacement. The Herald had failed on her mission, so the Cube Queen came in, took over, and then when the Cube Queen failed, over a long period of time things became quiet until the Herald could gather enough energy from the 0 point to gather her strength to eventually take over the island via the liquid chrome. Now, does this mean that the Cube Queen and the Herald are enemies? Not necessarily. Are they part of the same army? I don't believe that to be the case either. However, I believe they share a master. Once again, I believe that the Nothing is the presence that gives them both the power to do what they do. Specifically with the cubes, I've always found them an interesting concept. They don't seem to be a natural thing that was given to the last reality. If you listen to the Origins Anthem, he says that the cubes are all consuming. And I don't believe that the cubes just consume like physical objects or even just organic matter, but I believe they control and consume a person's mind over a long period of time. That's why the Origin had to escape and get away. because he was starting to be taken over by the power of the cubes. The Cube Queen, on the other hand, was not so fortunate, and she was fully consumed by their power. Now, we don't know much about the Herald at this point, but I would like to think that her story might border along the same lines. Also, think of it like this. Who else do we know that was consumed by a strange substance just like the Cube Queen? Raz. And when was Raz active on the Fortnite Island? Chapter 2, Season 6. And what is Raz's body consumed in? Liquid metal. But on top of that, what is covering the liquid metal? Runes. And what do those runes look like? Those runes look like the same ones that you see on the cubes. And that is the connection. The runes, the chrome, all of it. They're byproducts of the Nothing. The Nothing was the voice that was contacting Raz, consuming him. The Nothing is what's in control of the cubes, which took over the last reality and corrupted the Cube Queen. And now the Herald is playing the same song and dance that we've seen multiple times on the Fortnite Island. She's now using the power of the Nothing to take control of the Fortnite Island. So to sum it all up, the big takeaway is this. The ultimate enemy of Fortnite has never been the Imagined Order. It hasn't been Geno. It hasn't been the Cube Queen, and it's not the Herald. The true enemy that we are going to have to face at the end of the day is going to be the Nothing. But the question on my mind, and I'm sure it's on yours as well, is if the Nothing wins, if they're successful this time, what happens? What are the 7 gonna do, and what's gonna happen to the Fortnite Island? I think that would be a video best left for next week, but until then, why don't you check the one that's up on the screen right now? That should keep you busy until my next live stream or until I can get the next video out. But until then, I love you guys, and I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.